Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Sports Speak, episode 107. I'm Eddie Kalegi. Clearly, that is not Tim Moore. Tim's in Lake George. Hayley Galindo filling in for him this week. Hayley, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Tim. I miss you.
So let's get right into it. We're going to be talking some Major League Baseball today. Obviously, our last episode, if you haven't checked that out, Tim and I broke down the Major League Baseball trade deadline, our winners and losers from that. But now we're starting to see those moves pay off. We're a week past the deadline. We've seen some players debut for their new teams. And we got to start with the Padres and the Dodgers because the Dodgers didn't do much. They got Joey Gallo from the Yankees, which really doesn't mean much. The Padres did about anything that you could have asked for. They got a closer, an elite closer in Josh Hader. They brought in Juan Soto and Josh Bell and Brandon Drury. And it looked good in the debut. Drury hit a grand slam in his first at bat. They beat the Rockies, but then they had to face the Dodgers this past weekend. And it's pretty clear that the Dodgers are still the superior team in the NL West, outscoring San Diego 20-4. I know it's new. I know Soto is just adjusting to his new team, but Hayley, do you see any sort of possibility where the Padres can really contend for an NL pennant this year against the Dodgers or the Mets or something like that?
Okay, so going back to what you said and saying how the trades really paid off. I think for the Padres, you can't say that. I think what they had, I don't get me wrong, Juan Soto is a great guy. They added Bell, they added some great people to the roster. Fernando Tatis, he's on his rehab assignment, which by the way, he's in San Antonio doing awful. Didn't get to watch him play, but whatever. I don't think it's paying off. Honestly, I'm a little bit disappointed. I don't know what's going on. Maybe they need to restart their engine. I have no idea, but I don't think what they have, the team they had before they even added these guys, they already didn't have it to begin with. And August is such a weird time for players. Here we see teams lose it. We see players lose it. And they still have like crazy games. They're actually, no, their next lineup, it's like the Royals, Diamondbacks. These are the games that are most important because they should be stacking up their wins. Because what is it, like 90 wins that they have to have before to even make it to playoffs?
Yeah.
And I believe they play the Dodgers again in September. So this is not over. And this is, I don't know what it is. The Dodgers obviously are, I think they're the better team, but coming into this, especially with the moves the Padres made, I did believe that the Padres could beat them. That wasn't the case, but I'm really interested to see what happens next. I think we shouldn't count them out, but at the same time, the Dodgers are such a great team. So I don't know. It's so weird to see this play out. I really thought they were going to do better than they did.
Well, and it's important you mentioned they play some really bad teams coming up. And this is where the Padres fell apart last year because it looked like when September came last year, they were going to make the playoffs and get a wild card spot. Then they collapsed and it wasn't playing the Dodgers. They were basically done playing the Dodgers. They only had one series against them in September last year. It was the other teams, specifically Arizona and Colorado in the NL West, and they lost a bunch of games they should have won against them. So that's why it's so important right now when aside from Tatis, you have a healthy roster in San Diego. Make the most of this, win those games. They still have two series left with LA, one at Chavez Ravine, one in San Diego, both of those in September. You know you're going to struggle in those games. But for the Padres, it's just a weird spot too, because as many wins as they're going to get, even if they play great these next 2 months, if Tatis comes back and he plays well, they're still not catching the Dodgers. They could win 95 to 100 games this season and still end up with a 4 seed because they're not going to win their division because the Dodgers are so strong. And then they get stuck in a situation where they're probably going to have to play Atlanta in the first round. And we know how dangerous the Braves are. They went to the World Series and won it last year. So I think the Padres are still in a really difficult spot. But my question for you is this. You mentioned Fernando Tatis Jr., potentially going to make his way back. He's dealt with a lot of injuries over the last couple of years. There's also been criticisms about how well he plays in the field at shortstop. Do you think Tatis could be a difference maker when he comes back that could push the Padres on a deeper run in the postseason?
I think he brings swag to the team. I think they need it. I think right now they don't have anything. And you see it. They don't have any energy. I don't know what it is. I think with teams, okay, I know we're going to get to it later, but even like with the Yankees, like I think it's more about what team cares the most. And I think without Tatis, he's such like an important character to the team. I don't know, because honestly, I'm so happy we got to see him swing a bat. Just that alone, that was really cool to see. But him going like 0 for 3 and in double A, it makes me wonder, like, I don't know. And he even made a couple errors at shortstop too. So that's just, I think he could, I think they need him back basically, but yeah, I think he could definitely be the reason they lose some games and the reason they win some.
Yeah, because Tatis has been around in the majors now. This will be his fourth season. I know it's been all parts of seasons because he's been hurt a lot, but aside from really 2020 when the Padres last played the Dodgers in the playoffs, and that was the short season, he hasn't really done that much. He's a
Right.
great power hitter. Of course, like you said, he brings a lot of personality and swag to the team, but that only gets you so far when you have to play a Dodgers team with Freddie Freeman and Mookie Betts and Cody Bellinger. So let's talk about the Dodgers now. Clayton Kershaw just got hurt. He hurt his back, so don't know exactly how healthy he's going to be down the stretch. Walker Buehler, who's the Dodgers' other really strong starting pitcher, he's out till at least September. So it makes you wonder with the Dodgers, knowing how good the Padres are pitching wise, the Mets, which we'll get to in a few minutes, having DeGrom and Scherzer healthy. Are the Dodgers going to be, is it going to hurt them that all they did at the trade deadline was get Joey Gallo and that they didn't try to get a starting pitcher?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I don't think their team is so untouchable. I don't know what it is with the Dodgers. They just have such a great team. It didn't really matter what they did during the trade deadline. They're still going to come out and perform just the way they do, just the way we've always seen them perform. They are the best team in the National League, and nobody can really take that away from them. I don't think it doesn't what they didn't do during the trade deadline doesn't affect them now. They're a powerhouse team and they have it.
I'm going to disagree with you because let's not forget in past years how many different years it feels like we've said that the Dodgers are the best team in the National League heading to the playoffs. I feel like probably 5 or 6 of the last 7 years.
How many times have we seen them in the playoffs though?
How many times have we seen them win the World Series? Only once, and that was in 2020. Last year, we all thought that the Dodgers were going to probably make it to the World Series, if not win it. And then because of their lack of starting pitching, because Max Scherzer, yeah, they traded for him, but was dealing with injury, they didn't have the depth necessary, and they lost to a Braves team with a bunch of young starting pitching that I don't think anybody thought was better than the Dodgers, but because the Dodgers didn't have pitchers down the stretch, that's why they lost. And that makes me wonder, they didn't make any moves. Kershaw's getting old. You don't know what you're getting from Walker Buehler. The offense is important, yes, but when you have to face someone like the Padres with Musgrove and Darvish or the Mets with DeGrom and Scherzer, do the Dodgers really have enough? And is just trading for Joey Gallo at a busy trade deadline going to be enough to push them over the edge? I just don't feel that way.
The Joey Gallo trade was a joke, but yeah, I agree with you. I see that there. I just think the Dodgers, that I feel like they're always a team where if you're doing like World Series predictions, you can always put them in that slot. Like, well, I see the Dodgers getting to the World Series, you know what I mean? And nobody's going to turn their head and look at you like, what did you just say? Because they're such a great team. And we'll see what happens. I mean, like I said, this is August. August is such a weird month for players and for teams, but I do think the Dodgers have the upper hand in this for sure, 100%.
So let's stay in the NL, but move to the East Coast. Of course, I've got Citi Field in the background, so I'm excited for the New York Mets, who just took 4 of 5 from the Atlanta Braves and then won last night against Cincinnati. That's not a big deal against the Reds, but taking 4 of 5 from the Braves obviously is. One bad start from Taijuan Walker, but outside of that, Carlos Carrasco, Max Scherzer, Jacob DeGrom all pitched great in the series. Pete Alonso had 2 home runs. Francisco Lindor had a home run and a couple of doubles. Daniel Vogelbach, who is looking like a hero. I was very critical on this show when the Mets traded for Vogelbach because they gave up a really solid relief pitcher in Colin Holderman to get him. But now Vogelbach has become like a hometown hero. He's hitting .333 since he joined the Mets. And he just keeps racking up base hits and driving in runs. And he's just another spark plug in this already very deep Mets offense. So obviously I'm the Mets fan here. You are not. And I may need to be humbled here, but
you definitely do.
When I see Max Scherzer and Jacob DeGrom pitch the way they did back-to-back days against the defending World Series champions, I'm feeling pretty good about the Mets going on a deep playoff run and maybe going toe-to-toe with the Dodgers for a World Series spot. Am I being a little too, over the top here, or am I realistic in my excitement?
I mean, when you have that starting rotation, it's insane. And I have to say, even as a Yankee fan, I'm obviously not a Mets fan, but I think that DeGrom is one of the most dominant starting pitchers. And the way he came out on his debut was insane. And that's just so promising. And that's what you want out of a starting pitcher. I don't think it's crazy for you to say it. I mean, the Mets are in position to win their division, but I don't think you should get too comfortable because I think the Braves, I'm honestly rooting for the Braves here. I think that they're literally right behind you.
Well, they're not as close behind as they were. They're 6 games back now because they lost 4 of 5 to the Mets, and Spencer Strider claims it's because the Mets are lucky.
Got lucky. I was going to ask you about that. I was going to bring it up. Like, I have to ask you, what do you think about Strider's remark about the Mets getting lucky?
Okay, now here's my
That's big
thought.
talk. That's big talk for him.
Yeah, if this was April or May, I wouldn't have been that critical of him. If this was the last time the Mets made the World Series back in 2015, because if you remember that year, the Mets were bad through the first half of the season. They had so many injuries. They weren't pitching well. They weren't hitting well. Then they traded for Yoenis Cespedes. David Wright came off the injured list, and then they were able to go on a miraculous run. And if you want to say there was a little bit of luck that season, okay. But the Mets have been consistent since opening day. They've been taking series after series against good, mediocre, and bad teams. So to say that they are just getting lucky when they beat the defending World Series champs 4 out of 5, and DeGrom and Scherzer combined to throw up, I think it's 13 innings of 2-run ball and striking out 23 Braves hitters in their 2 starts. I don't think that's lucky. I think that's just that the Mets have the stronger roster than the Braves. So Spencer Strider has instantly made himself an enemy of the Mets fan base after only pitching against them once so far in his career.
I definitely agree. I think Strider just should have tipped his hat and called it a game. But yeah, I think that's really big talk, especially since I think Swanson was their only hit, their only run. It was that home run that he had. So yeah, it's just big talk. And the Braves, they had so many opportunities to take that number 1 spot, and they didn't perform well. So I think the Mets are definitely the better team, and the Braves are scary. And I think sometimes you have a hard time sleeping at night, but for the most part, the Mets have this. They have it in the bag.
Yeah, what I wonder is the postseason, because I think the Mets are going to win the NL East, but the Braves, depending on what matchup they get, if they have to play San Diego or if they end up playing against somebody else, it could be interesting how it works out, because the Braves, of course, didn't have the best roster last year, but were able to put it together in October and win the World Series, even with a young starting rotation, without Ronald Acuna Jr., without Soroka, and they don't have Freddie Freeman anymore, but everybody else is playing in that lineup to an all-star level. Austin Riley has been sensational this year. Acuna's healthy. Dansby Swanson's playing great. Matt Olson has been a nice replacement for Freddie Freeman. So my concern for the Mets is, and I said it before, I like the moves they made. Vogelbach and Naquin have made solid, contributions to the roster, but they should have done more to address the bullpen, because Edwin Diaz has been the best closer in baseball, but you need someone to bridge the gap between the starter and the closer in the 7th and 8th inning. And they don't have that consistently, because Seth Lugo gets knocked around a lot. They traded for Michael Gibbons. He's made 2 appearances for the Mets. He's given up at least 2 runs in both of them. And he was supposed to be their big, acquisition for the bullpen. So my worry is that the Mets don't have enough pitching. The starting rotation is great, but Jacob deGrom is not going to be throwing 7-8 innings on a consistent basis. He's 34 years old. He gets hurt all the time. You just have to expect that. Max Scherzer, as great as he's been this year, is almost 40 years old. He's not throwing as deep into games as he used to. So you need someone else. You can't rely on Edwin Diaz every single night. And he can't give you 6-out saves every single night. He's only done that once all season. So I just worry that the Mets aren't going to have the bullpen help when they have to face a Dodgers, a Padres, a Braves team that has clutch hitters that can come up in big spots in the 7th and 8th inning. And that's where I worry that while the Mets will probably win the NL East and get the 2 seed in the National League behind the Dodgers, I just don't know if they're going to have enough to really make that deep run and get back to the World Series.
Yeah, no, I definitely see that. And I agree with the last part you said. I think that's I know that's what separates the 2 teams, is that the Mets don't have the bullpen. They don't have the depth in their bullpen. And honestly, like the Braves, they play each other again. What is it, like a 4-game set? They're going to see each other.
In Atlanta, that's a couple weeks.
Yeah. So those are like must watch games. I mean, those are going to be those are massive games for both teams. But yeah, I agree. I don't think they have the depth in the bullpen. And I think when you talk about pitching, I think not starting, but I think the Braves do have a better bullpen.
So let's go to the American League. Now, throughout the year, all I was hearing from Tim and other Yankee fans is that the Yankees are still much, much better than the Mets. Well, all of a sudden, both these teams have the exact same record. Garrett Cole in his last start gave up 6 runs in the first inning to the Seattle Mariners, including a home run to Jarred Kelenic. Yankees won last night. Aaron Judge went deep again. He's got 44 home runs. He's on a historic pace. But the Yankees have not been playing as well as they did the first 3 months of the year. And the rotation isn't as strong. They lost Michael King for the season. Clay Holmes hasn't been the same closer. Aroldis Chapman is awful now. There's still problems with that lineup. So, Hayley, as a Yankee fan, are you concerned going into these final 2 months and heading into the playoffs, especially knowing that the Astros added and Mancini and Vasquez have both played well for them already? Are you worried as a Yankee fan that things are going to kind of catch up to them and they might be in the same spot as they were last year and years past where they can't get past?
All right, Eddie. All right. You don't have that extra part. Any Yankee fan who comes on here and says, I'm not worried is a liar. Like they're just lying. I mean, the Yankees just snapped a 5-game losing streak and it has to be against the Mariners. And I mean, I think they just got too comfortable. I think that's what it was. They got too comfortable with where they were. And I think you have to be really careful when we talk about these games being important. The Yankees, like, they know that these games are important. And I think when you keep giving rope to these teams, I don't want to see what happened. Like, I don't want to see what happens to them now. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want any of that to happen. What in the past years, basically, is what I'm trying to say. I don't want any of that to happen again. So, yeah, I mean, Aaron Judge can't stop hitting home runs, quoted by Eddie Kalegi at one point, but hit his 44th yesterday. And then Donaldson even got in on the action. So that was good to see the bats kind of waking up. But I think they kind of have this mindset. And I think it's almost like the Padres in the sense that I think they feel that once they get Stanton and Rizzo back, they'll kind of, perform like they used to. And I think that cannot be any more scarier because we definitely need these games. And our lineup, the rest of the lineup, the games that we're playing, it's not getting any easier. So I'm happy, a win is a win. It's cool that we won yesterday, but I'm not content, and I won't be, and I won't feel comfortable getting into these next couple series if this is how they're playing.
Well, and I'd be more worried just in general. The Yankees are going to make the playoffs. The Yankees are still
Without a doubt.
At least the Toronto's not catching them. But the worry I have is even if they get all the way to the ALCS, which would be nice for them, how do they go up against the Astros? Because the Astros have owned them so far this regular season. They've owned them in the postseason twice before. And I don't understand why the Yankees traded away Jordan Montgomery just for him to pitch well against them in his first start with the Cardinals. Like, the Yankees need rotation depth. They've had a great starting staff this year, but you don't know that Nestor Cortez is going to continue this throughout the season. I have never seen any sort of indication that Garrett Cole can be a reliable starter in a playoff game. And Frankie Montas, sure, he's got a good career against the Astros, but what about all the other 28 teams in the league? What about Toronto and the ALDS potentially? So I don't get why they traded Jordan Montgomery, and I still don't think they have the pitching to try to hold down an Astros lineup in a series.
I think our closing pitchers, Chapman's not doing it. We know that, and he has shown us that throughout the season. But yeah, the Astros do scare me. I think they've always scared the Yankee fans. They are a great team, and something about them, it's like when we play Tampa Bay, I don't know what it is, but it's just we always have a hard time with them. So I see that. I definitely do, but I think they'll do fine going into those games. Even if they don't have Stanton, even if they don't have Rizzo, I think they'll still do fine. I think they'll come out and perform like we've seen them.
Well, I have an important question for you. You're in Texas. How did you end up having this Yankees allegiance? You could have easily become an Astros fan or a Texas Rangers fan being down there. Why the Yankees?
So my family's from New York, and my dad's from Brooklyn. And so he's the typical, he loves the Yankees. He loves the Giants. He says he's a Knicks fan, but he won't really tell you that because he's a little embarrassed to mention that. But yeah, that's where it is. I can never see myself liking the Rangers. Astros, for one, I'm not a cheater. So, that's just where that kind of lies. But yeah, no, I'm for sure 100% a Yankee fan. I love them so much. And I couldn't imagine liking the Rangers or the Astros for that matter. But that's where it all started, just because my family's from New York. And, Yankee fans, you either love them or you hate them. And my dad is a typical, he is just what you think of when you think of a Yankee fan.
So let's finish with this. The postseason is only about 2 months away. We've hit on some of these key teams. Of course, in the NL, you've got the Dodgers, the Mets, the Padres, the Braves. AL, you would think it'll come down to the Yankees and the Astros, but maybe Toronto goes on a sneaky run. We've seen the Rays play well in the postseason before. I'm still going to stick with my prediction from the preseason. That was that the Dodgers and the Astros are going to play in the World Series. As much as both the Mets and Yankees have been successful, and as much as I want to see the Mets make the World Series, I still have doubts. One, like I said, about their bullpen, and two, that Jacob deGrom will stay healthy and still be around pitching for them in October. So for that reason, while I think it could be like a thrilling 7-game series with the Dodgers, I still have LA edging them out, especially if they get Kershaw and Buehler back, though it'll be close. And in the AL, the Yankees are still going to give up like clutch home runs to Jose Altuve, and buzzers or cheating or not, the Astros are still going to beat the Yankees, in my opinion, and go to the World Series. So right now, given what we know, given what we've seen, what is your World Series prediction?
Well, I disagree with you right there. Not even being biased. I really do think we'll see the Yankees in the World Series. I really do think. I think this year, I know everyone always says that, right? Like, oh, this year we're going to win a ring. I'm not saying we're going to go as far as to win a ring, but I think they'll make an appearance. And I don't think you're wrong with the Dodgers being in the National League, are making it to the World Series. I feel like we talked about that last time, where it doesn't really matter. I feel like any year you could say that and no one's going to look at you weird. And especially because they are such a great team. So yeah, I see the Yankees and the Dodgers. I think the Yankees will definitely pull through and they'll show up when they play those tough teams. They know that they're tough teams. You know, they go into those games knowing that we're going to have to work hard for the win. And I think that they'll do good. And I think that the Yankees and the Dodgers will see them this year. They'll meet.
Well, Major League Baseball would love that if it's a Yankees Dodgers World Series.
Right.
Just say that they've been wanting that, because that used to happen every year, like in the 40s and 50s, and they haven't been able to get it since. And there's been so many years where both of those teams have been good and it just hasn't happened. So for the ratings, we know Fox and Major League Baseball would love a Yankees Dodgers matchup. But that'll close out our MLB talk. One last thing I want to ask you, Hayley. You mentioned your dad's a Yankees and a Giants fan. Now, last episode, Tim said that the Giants are going to win 11 games this season, which I think is insane. And he has them finishing above the Eagles and contending with Dallas to win the NFC East. So I just want to know generally, do you think the Giants could potentially make the playoffs this year, or are they still a couple of key pieces away?
No, I think they can make it. And I wish Tim was here and I wish he was backing me up right now, because I feel like, was that the episode where y'all were super heated?
Well, there's been 3 of those, and it's gotten progressively more heated every time we've brought it up.
No, yeah, I definitely agree with Tim. Do not count the Giants out. I think they're going to come out this season and they're going to show everyone up. I agree with Tim on that one 100%. I can back him up.
All right. Well, we'll leave it at that. That'll be it for Sports Speak episode 107. Reminder, all episodes available on YouTube and Spotify. Tim will be back from Lake George next week. Probably going to preview some more NFL action because the football season is less than a month away. NBA, if there's any news of Kevin Durant, we'll get to that as well next week. And you can follow us on Twitter at SportsSpeak Live for more. Hayley Galindo, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for coming on and filling in for Tim today.
Thank you, Eddie. It was a pleasure.
All right, that'll wrap things up for Hayley. I'm Eddie Kalegi signing off of Sports Speak. We hope you have a great rest of your week.